I'll sit next to you.
Um, how old were you during the Vietnam War?
I was Vietnam War. I was 3 years old when it started in 1953, and I think it went on to 1974, 75. So I guess the answer is 3 years old.
Did you serve in the military?
Yes, I did.
What branch?
United States Air Force.
What rank did you attain?
I was a sergeant.
Did you win any awards or medals?
No.
How long were you in the military service?
4 years.
What role did you play during this period of our history?
I was in the military police. We were responsible for protecting our assets, basically, our aircraft, um, nuclear weapons, and things like that. And after that, I can't say no more.
Um, do you feel like you made any sacrifices during this period of time?
Yes, I did. It was hard. It was a difficult time, and I was fortunate. I never went to Vietnam, but I was in the service during the Vietnam era, and the soldiers back then weren't popular because of all the anti-war things going on, and basically people were revolting against the reason for us being in the war, and the reason why we were there is because the Cold War had just ended, and the communists, mainly Russia, but China also, were trying to promote communism through the world, and Vietnam was, well, as they would say now, that was the red line, no more. Because Russia was trying to take over as much of Eastern Europe as they could and promote communism, and there was a big fear in the United States about them just taking over the whole world. And that was basically the reason for the Vietnam War. And so that's why we got involved in the Vietnam War, is to stop the spread of the ideology of communism. And back then, a lot of America was split, like it's kind of split today with President Trump and the way the liberals are. Some people didn't think that it was worth us losing all them lives and everything over there for something that really isn't a threat to us. But what was your question again?
Did you make any sacrifices during this period of time?
Yeah. Back then there was a thing called the draft. You know what the draft is?
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, my draft number was 53. I was going one way or another, and so my whole thinking was, well, if I got to go into service, I might as well go in a branch where I might be able to get something out of it, and so that's why I joined the Air Force, and served for 4 years, and they had orders for Vietnam twice, but they were both times they were canceled because I'm not quite sure what year the Vietnam War ended, if it was 74 or 75 or 73, but they were withdrawing, slowly withdrawing back then, and so they canceled my orders. But the thing that affected me most about the Vietnam War was how terribly we were treated in the United States with well, I guess you would call it the far left or the left, the liberal aspect of the, the country, because they they used us for to take their frustrations out on the way things were over there, and they're they're well within their rights to feel the way they did, but they said they would always say horrible things. For instance, one time I was in a party, and it wasn't really a party, it was just I had just moved into an apartment, and a friend of mine who wasn't in the service invited me to this place on the beach, where you had, just people hanging out, and this one girl, she found out I was a GI, and she just tore me up and called me a murderer and everything else, and really, I felt terrible. I mean, it's like, talk about a self-esteem killer. That was it right there. But then I was talking with this guy that brought me there. He says, she feels the way she does because her brother had been killed over in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
So there was just all kinds of stories like that, but it wasn't a real popular time to be in the service, and I can honestly say now I'm really glad to see that our servicemen are being respected more. That was important to me. But yeah, that was kind of a thing I had. That happened when I was back in 1971. I didn't get out till 75, but I always thought about that. I felt bad for even being in the service sometimes. And you could only imagine how somebody who was actually in Vietnam and the horrors they went through, and knowing that probably half of America wasn't even behind them, and what emotional scars they have. I mean, what I had, I could handle, but there were a lot of guys that couldn't handle that, and their lives were ruined because of it.
Do you remember any prices of consumer products during those times, like the price of gas?
Over in England, you couldn't buy it. You were given there were two things you couldn't buy over in England. I was stationed over in England from 73 to 75, and this is something where you were given ration cards, and I didn't have, and we were fortunate. Every month I get ration cards for gasoline, and then people would buy them from me. And same way with booze. I didn't drink that much back then, and I always got that. But those were the two things. Plus every other day, shops in Mildenhall, England, where I was stationed, wouldn't have electricity. So every other day the shops would be, you'd walk in there and there'd be lanterns and things. And that went on for a while. Not for the full 2 years I was stationed there, but that did go on. Rationing.
What kinds of income did people have in those days?
What kind of income?
Yeah.
Well, as a GI, I never complained about my pay because I was single, and all my room was, my housing was provided, and my meals were provided. So I can't really remember how much I got paid, but it was enough to get by on. But I don't know if I would be able to support a family on it.
Did you have a civilian job of any kind during the war?
I was a bartender, part-time. while I was in the service.
What kinds of social activities did people do during those days?
Hmm. In America, it didn't really change so much. Um, so I would say, nothing special as far as I'm concerned.
What kind of recreational activities do people participate in?
Well, I can speak for myself, and this is going to be a real shocker to you, Riley. Fishing is what I did a lot of, you know, and I did go to church, and I did meet some nice people that way.
Describe the house or apartment you lived in.
Well, I had a one-bedroom apartment, and we had myself and another guy. He slept on the couch, and I had the bedroom, and it was just small, and no. I remember my mom and dad came to visit me, and my mom cried because she walked in the bedroom, and I didn't even have a pillow. I had an old coat I used for a pillow, and one ratty green sheet, and then a blanket. And she went right out and bought me a pillow and everything. But yeah, that was, we didn't, we ate. We had one frying pan, and we always kept all the grease in it, so we wouldn't have to put no grease in it. It was really gross around now that I look at it, but that's the way we lived.
Did you live with family?
No.
Where did you go to school?
I graduated from Oswego High School, so it'd be Oswego, New York.
How do you spell that?
Oswego.
What were the schools like?
Like schools today, it was overcrowded. High school was, so we had what you called split sessions in my senior year, where we would go to school. We'd have to be there at 7, and we were there till noon. Then our day was done, and then the country kids would bust in the afternoon, and they had the second session in the afternoon. So it's kind of nice. I was able to hold a part-time job at a grocery store, and
what kinds of foods did you eat then?
oh, the same we do now. Maybe my diet was a lot more high fat, but
What were the meals like then as compared to now?
well, I think we're a little more conscious of what we eat and how much we eat. So, with me, how much you eat, you know. I think we're better educated as far as eating goes now than we were back then.
Were there shortages of food?
In England, there was shortages. Yes, not in America, no.
What was shorted?
Well, meat. Basically, the meats were what they're short on. I don't know what that was.
What foods were plentiful or available?
Basically, everything was available, but at times, like I was saying, that um, you know, I guess there were no shortages to the point where it wasn't there, but it was real expensive to buy.
What were the fashion styles like back then?
Bell-bottom pants, you know, flowery shirts, I guess, long hair. I never, I wasn't into all that. I was just strictly blue jeans, like I am now.
What was dating like then?
Oh, I only dated one person, my wife, and that was great. I didn't date much, Nancy and I got together when we were about, oh, I'd say 19, and we've been basically together almost all that time.
Were male-female relationships different than what they are now?
I think I think women were more respected. Some of some of the things that in the conversations I hear today, we would never have heard um, back then. It was you would never ever ever say the F bomb in front of a woman, and now I think a lot of women use it as much as the men do. But back then, it, it was different. Uh, um, there was a degree of the respect for women and women for men that just isn't there anymore.
What was the crime rate then?
Not as bad as it is now. I mean, there were some horrible things that went on, but but I think things are much worse now than what they were back then.
How was the technology different?
Well, there's no cell phones, there's no tablets, and computers and things like that were, if they were there, I don't know if they were there or not. I didn't even get involved with them till I was 47 years old. So,
Do you remember anything about taxes in those days?
not really. I wasn't a property owner, so I remember I think it was 4% sales tax back then.
How did lifestyles change at the end of the war?
Uh, I think things improved. Um, just for the fact that a lot of people that were so extremely liberal and rioting and protesting, they grew up and they had families. And I really think you saw a downturn on liberalism as people got older and they had their kids, and they started bending more towards being a conservative. And there were a lot of liberal Democrats that slowly turned to be conservative Republicans.
Do you have any final comments or information you'd like to share?
No, not really, other than uh, I just wish we would have taken care of our Vietnam veterans better than what we did. Um, it was sad to see, and it, although I was never over there, I know it was terribly hard to fight a war that they knew that people that weren't supporting back home, and I think because of that there was a lot of drug usage and things like that, ways to escape.
Alright, thank you.
You are welcome.